Hello and welcome back to Rule the Game. In this video, I'll show you how to play SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, a game by Tomáš Holek, published by CGE. This is a game for 1 to 4 players. It lasts about 40 minutes per player, and it's recommended start at age 14. As usual, I'll first show you how to get points in this game, then we'll cover how to play the game, I'll give you some hints for your first game, and then I'll show you how to set it up. I will not show you how to play the solo mode here. For that, please refer to instructions. And I will also not cover every single card that this game has, but I'll show you how they work and what the mechanisms are so that you can actually play the game. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe now, and then we'll continue with how to win the game.
Rule the game.
In SETI, you play 5 rounds, during which you're going to collect points, and at the very end of the game, you'll get some extra points. Now, as you can see, this game is huge, and it didn't even fit on my table here, and I don't have the personal board on here yet even, but we're going to be able to make do with what we have here. So what you see here is you see the solar system, you see some of the planets. Up here, there will be alien cards that have number of points on them once you've actually discovered them. I will not let you discover them yet. And you'll see plenty of points all over the place. The points are here, the green circles with the white number in them. And you see them over here on the planets, next to the planets, on some of the moons that these planets have. You'll see them somewhere here where you go look at the nearest stars to the solar system. You'll find them on some of the extra tech that you can get. They're on some of the cards even that you can get. And as I said, on the alien cards, there are a bunch more. During the game, whenever you play an action and you get some points, you will move here your marker on this track here, the score tracker. And you can even get around it and start over on this side again, in which case then you'll see up here you have these tokens that currently say 100. I'm going to put them aside here, but you can have 100. You can also have the 200s in the back. So you just keep counting during the game. After 5 rounds, you will then also look at 3 more options to win points. You can win more points from the milestone trackers up here. Then you can win points from cards that you've played during the game that have here this golden frame. And third, and that depends a little bit on what kind of aliens to discover in this game, some of the aliens have end of the game scoring options where you can get additional points. So it's a little bit of a mix of points from everywhere, but you just have to keep getting points as you play it and try to have the most points. Now, this is one of the few games where you have a designer who decided that there's no tiebreaker. So if there are really 2 people who have the same number of points, then you share that win, because the designer says, if you survive for that long in this game, you deserve to win with somebody else. SETI is a turn-based game. The starting player in each round will be the person who has the moon token. We will then go in turns in clockwise order until a person passes. That person will then be out for the round until everybody has passed and doesn't want to play anymore. And if you've passed once, you can't actually get back into this round anymore. But then we'll finish that round with everybody having passed, and we'll move on to the next round. You'll see the number of the rounds always up here with these cards that we have up here. If you still have all 4 decks, you're still in round 1. If you have only these cards left, you're in round 4. And if all of the cards are gone, you're in round 5, at the end of which you're going to do the end of game scoring, and then you finish the game. During the game, when it's your turn, you get to do exactly 1 main action. The main actions are shown here on the player board. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 main actions that you can play. There are also a bunch of free actions that I will get to, and the free actions you can do during your turn whenever you want to, and you can play as many of them as you want to. Most of the main actions that you play will revolve around finding life traces of the extraterrestrial intelligence. There are 3 different kinds of life traces that you can find. There's the pink one, there's the yellow one, and there's the blue one. You'll gain those markers from different actions. To get the yellow triangle, you're going to have to play here in the main solar system, where you launch a probe from Earth. You'll move it then to a planet where you'll have to land it to gain one of these yellow icons. To get the pink triangle, you'll have to scan the universe and collect data. If you've collected enough data, you'll then gain one of these pink ones. And the last way is that you have to actually analyze the data. And if you analyze the data, you will then gain here the blue triangle. We will now go through the different main actions one by one. And I will actually start with the research tech action. The research action lets you upgrade your moves. You see all the research tokens up here. You can get all the different research tokens. They will always upgrade your board. As you can see, you have 4 slots that are orange, you have 4 slots that are pink, those are Ds, and you have 4 slots that are blue, those are Ds. You can never take one token twice. Now, to play the research action, you have to play 6 publicity points. Those publicity points are shown over here, and you actually see it shown here over here again. You need 6 publicity, so your microphone here must have moved up to at least 6, otherwise you can't do a research action. And once you have reached 6, or let's say they have reached 7, I can then do the research action. In which case it tells me first what I have to do. I have to do a rotation of the solar system. What that means is I'll take this coin here, I'll move it up here, and you see here that we're going to move just one of the rings of your solar system. That's the one at the very inner circle, and you just move that by one sector. Later on, should you move over here, you're going to move 2 of these circles, in which case you just move these 2 by a circle and by a sector. And if you do this, of course, you move the last one. As you can see, the deeper I go on these circles here, I always move the ones up on top as well. So they all keep moving around the solar system here. After you've rotated the solar system, you then get to pick here one of these research techs. Now, for the first person, there are always here 2 victory points that they get for free. You take those away once you've picked the first one of a certain deck. And then underneath, you already see that each card has a slightly different immediate bonus. In some cases, you get energy. In some cases, you get publicity. In some cases, you get victory points. It's important for you to know that while 4 different research cards on one deck have slightly different bonuses, the other side is actually all the same for all of them. So the advantage that the player gets from taking one of those tokens here is the same for all players. They just get a slightly different immediate bonus. Now, so let's say should I have my 7 here, I would go down to 1 because it cost me 6 to actually get this research token. I would have to do the rotation once, which I do here, just the inner circle by 1. And then I would go and grab one of those. For example, I'd grab this one here. This gives me 2 victory points. I'll move my tracker here by 2 victory points. I discard those. And this one here then goes into the slot that works for this. So in this case, you see right here, you have this slot that is the same, slightly different because it's actually an upgrade. And you slot it in right here. And so that will make this action later cheaper. If you get an orange or a pink technology, then you'll have to place it exactly in the field that matches it. And you'll always see how they match here with their main action. If you get a computer tech, those are the blue ones here, you can fit them in any of those 4 spaces. You decide the order. Now that you know how to research a tech works, we'll start with the main actions with moving probes in the solar system. To get a probe on a different planet, of course, you have to launch it first. Now, the launch action here costs you 2 coins, and it's this symbol here. And when you pay the 2 coins, you see them here, the 2 coins, you will have some money to pay at some point. Once you pay the money, you'll then have a probe that is here on Earth. Please note that I can always have only one single probe in the solar system unless I have purchased here the tech that gives me the ability to go towards 2 probes in the solar system. Now you're going to have to move this probe. The move action is a free action, meaning it doesn't cost you a turn to do so, but you'll still have to be able to somehow move it around. One way to do it is if you have energy, 1 energy can be used to move the probe by 1. So in this case, I can move my probe to an asteroid field. Now the problem is getting out of the asteroid field is a little harder than getting in, so another move towards Venus would actually cost me 2 movements rather than 1. You can later make this move out of the asteroid field cheaper if you actually get the technology over here that you can place in here that says getting out of an asteroid field is now costing you only 1 movement. To move, you could also use a card. You will have cards in your hand from the very beginning, and each card has on the top left a free action that you can use. If you discard this card, you'll get the free action, in this case a movement, and you can move your probe then out of the asteroid field. But for this, I would actually need a second movement somehow that I would have to get from a second card most likely, or I have to buy an energy again. So I had 2 movements that will get me to Venus. Once on Venus, or once I'm somewhere where there's one of these publicity icons, you'll also gain a publicity. Now, again, the launching a probe is a main action. The moving wasn't. So the moving I could have done after I've launched a probe. The moving I could have done in between while I do other stuff on another turn. I could also do the move before my main action on my turn and do the move towards me Venus. I then gain my publicity, and then I can do something like either getting to orbit of Venus, or I could actually land the probe. Now, let's say we first play the getting into orbit. Getting into orbit costs me 1 coin and 1 energy. I of course have to have this if I want to get into orbit with my probe. Now, if I can pay here for getting into orbit, I'll pay my coin and I'll pay my energy, and then I'll move my probe from over here. It doesn't count as a probe in the solar system anymore, and I move it here into orbit of Venus. You'll see here, you have this area here where you can put probes that are getting here into orbit. You can have several probes in the same orbit. The first player who gets into orbit will gain 3 victory points. The first player and all the following players will also gain another 6 victory points, and they'll gain this action. This action is a free action that will allow you to generate income, and I'll show you that later. Now, let's say you had the probe and you wanted to land it on Venus, then you would have to do this action, the one with the rover. This costs you 3 energy, or if you have already a probe in orbit, it costs you only 2 energy. Here you can reduce the price by actually getting the technology to make it cheaper. Let's say I paid the 3 energy and I landed it. If I land it, then we end up here on this circle where, because I'm the first one again, I'm going to put my probe right here on this icon, and I automatically get 2 data that I'll take from the bank. Currently don't have enough around, but those are these tokens here that you will have on the side. You'll take those 2 data. You'll actually place them here in your computer data pool. And you'll also gain 5 victory points, and you gain here this yellow symbol. Now, if you gain one of these triangles, you will then take one of your markers here and you'll place it here on a yellow triangle field, either here for this alien species or here for this alien species, and the first person always gets the one on top. And again, you, as the one who's first here, you gain first to 5 victory points and you get 1 publicity and you put your marker on it. And the second player will then only get 3 victory points if they come here. However, over here, there's still a yellow one left too. So they could also place their marker later here in the 3 victory points and 1 publicity and be part of this alien group. Being the first on here for an alien species, being one that helped to discover it, and those are only the ones here up on top, has an advantage because later on, when we actually discover the alien, you'll get some extra bonus. Whoever lands after you will still gain the 5 victory points and the yellow triangle, but they won't get the 2 data. Now you may have noticed that some of the planets also have their own moons. For example, Jupiter has 4 different moons around them. You're not allowed to land on those moons unless you have gotten here this extra tech. This extra tech will allow you to land a rover on the moon. Should you want to land on the moon, you'll pay the regular costs for landing a rover, but then you'll actually place your probe on one of these fields here and you'll gain the corresponding victory points and whatever else they have. As you can see, there's only space for 1 person on each moon. Please also note that probes in the solar system can be affected by rotation. So if we had our probe here on the asteroid field, and person now decided to get tech, in which case you actually have to rotate, then we will rotate, and you see it pushes the probe ahead into a different sector. Now this can be difficult for you because now it has moved you on a field where it didn't want to be, or it actually helps you and gets you closer to another planet where you actually want it to be. Now our next activity to gain the pink triangles is to scan the universe. To scan the universe, you have to play 1 coin and 2 energy. What you can then do is that you can do at least 2 scans, in some cases even more, and you can play them in any order that you want. The basic options that you have available for scanning is that you can scan the sector where Earth is in. And you see here's Earth, and so this sector, that's where I can scan. So let's say I'm orange, I scan this sector. That means I'm going to put my token here on the leftmost point in this space here, and I'll take the data that was there before and place it in the data pool. I can then also do here this scanning, again in which order doesn't matter, and what that means here is that I can take one of those cards up here. Let's say I take this one. You see up here in top left, you see which sector we're going to be scanning. We're going to be scanning yellow. I take this card, I get it for free, I can discard it right away, and then I scan the yellow sector, or a yellow sector, because you see one is here and one's here. Let's say we scan here, I'll put a marker here too. I'll take that data and also put it here. Please note that if you had better technology, you could actually scan 2 more times here, and here you could even launch a probe for free as part of the scanning action if you had this right tech. Please note that the second player who scans the sector will get 2 victory points automatically. Now let's say I just finished my turn by doing a scanning right here. I scanned this sector as well. And we now have a completed sector because there are no data markers here anymore. What happens is now that we resolve it. And resolving always means that we have to figure out who has the majority of markers here in this sector. In this case, it's clear that purple has the majority. Had I been able to scan this sector twice, I would have been able to actually place another marker here, even though there's no slot left. I could have placed it here next to it. And now you see that there's a tie. And in the case of a tie, the tiebreaker is who placed their marker last. In this case, that would have been me. And so the victor then takes their marker and places it here up on this field. In this case, I would get a pink marker that I can then place up here in this pink field. You can complete a sector more than once. If you do so, the second victor will just get the 3 victory points, not this anymore because it's covered. After we decided who won the sector, we'll then give everybody who participated here a publicity, meaning that we're going to move up here the microphone of purple and orange. And then we clean up this sector by putting one marker of the person who got second in this sector up front, and then refilling it with data markers. And that's how you can gain pink triangles. Please note that at any time during the game, whenever we take a card from the row here, the open row, it gets replaced from the deck right away. And now we're still missing how to get the blue triangle. And for that, we have to analyze data. So this is our computer down here. The computer has 6 slots. And every time you get data into your pool, you can, as a free action during your turn, you can place that data in your computer. You always have to fill up your computer from left to right, and it's always top to bottom. You don't see that yet. Let's say I have these 2 data markers, I've placed them here, and when you put one here on top of an icon, you automatically gain whatever it says, in this case 1 publicity. Here I gain an income, which I said I'll show you later. So I'll place it here. I'll move here my microphone 1 up in publicity. There is research tech for your computer. All of the tech for your computer has 2 victory points on top and something on the bottom. You can, when you get it, you can stick it somewhere where you already have a data marker. I can put it underneath. I'll just place the data marker on top. But in that case, I won't win the 2 victory points because the data is already there. Should I have placed it over here, and then later on I gain data from somehow, in some way, I can place it then on here, or I will place it first in the pool and then move it then right over here. 2 victory points right away. You can only cover the circle below if you have the circle above already covered. So with my next data marker, I can either place it here and gain my income, or I can place it here and gain a coin. Now, the actual action to analyze data requires me to have a full computer. So only once I have at least 6 icons and 6 markers and they're all full here, now I can do the data analysis. And what that means is not much more than I'll clean off all of these data markers, put them back into the supply, and I will pay 1 energy if I have one, otherwise I can't do the action, and then I gain a blue triangle. And again, as before, by gaining a blue triangle, that just means I'll take my data marker and I'll put it here in one of those blue fields, either this one if it's still empty, or this one, or if this one was full already, I will place it down here. Now, as I said before, you can always do as a free action, you can move data from the pool here onto your computer, and you can move as much as you want. However, if you already have a full pool, and for some reason you'll gain some data on somebody else's turn, or at the end of the round when we gain all income, that extra data has no place to go, because you can only move them during your turn, and if you don't have a turn, you can't move it. So if you gain something in between, you'll have to discard it if your data pool is full. So it always makes sense to actually fill your computer if you have data. And that brings us to the last main action. And the last main action is to play a card. You will always have some cards in your hand that you've gained through some way or the other. You'll get some cards at the beginning, you'll get some cards at the end of a round. And each card has their costs here, and then they have an effect that you can use. In this case, you'll take your card, you'll pay a coin, that's the cost here. You'll pay a coin that you have gathered somewhere before. You can then move a probe if you have a probe somewhere here in your solar system. And you'll also get to send a signal onto a yellow sector. That card can then be discarded. However, there are some cards that actually let you do some more stuff. In this case, for example, if I play 3 coins, then I'll get to launch a probe, and I go through the whole motion of launching a probe, but it's for free. And I also can move my probe then by 1. This is considered a conditional card because you actually see you can gain more stuff than your effect up here. And so you will leave this card in front of you for the remainder of the game or until you've fulfilled this condition. In this case, it says if you have a probe or an orbiter or a rover at Mercury, you'll then win 7 victory points in the publicity. If you've already completed this, if you already have a rover at Mercury, then you can get the 7 victory points and the publicity at once, and you just place that card face down in front of you. If you haven't fulfilled it yet, you can keep it open until later in the game when you actually get an orbiter or a rover on Mercury, and at that point you actually resolve it, you get your 7 victory points and you get your publicity. Again, at that point you'll then just put it in front of you face down. There are also some cards that are considered triggerable missions. In this case, you'll pay your 2 coins, you get 2 data right away, and then you keep the card again in front of you. And when next time you get a blue triangle, you get to put the marker here and you get 2 publicity. And the second time you do it, you get to place another marker here and you get to place it here and you get the 4 victory points. If you had gained a blue triangle before, that doesn't count. You're going to have to do it after you place down your card. And once you actually fulfilled it, you'll take away your coins here or your markers and you put it face down again. Of course, you cannot trigger both effects with just doing that one time. So if you get a blue triangle, you can't cover both of them, you can only cover one. And even if you have another card that also lets you do something with a blue triangle, you will have to then decide, do you want to trigger one of those actions here or do you want to trigger the action on the other card? And then there's another kind of card here that has a golden box. That's an end of the game goal. That's another card that you just keep open in front of you until the end of the game, in which case it will score you some extra points. Now you have a couple more free actions that you can do. For one, you can always exchange 2 different resources into one different one. The 2 different resources could be energy, they could be money, and they could also be the icon that says you can draw a card. If you have 2 draw a card symbols, you can get a coin for it, or you can get an energy for it. Vice versa, if you have 2 coins, you can get 1 draw a card action that you can use right away. That's a free action. In addition, you also have up here, if you use 3 publicity, you can draw 1 card here, and this actually says you can draw a card from either the deck or one of the open row right here. Now, 2 things might happen during your turn. One is that you move past a milestone. That is when your victory tracker here gets across either one of those golden symbols here, or it gets across one of these green ones in case of a 2 and 3 player game. If you cross a golden one during your turn, you're going to get to take one of your markers and place it up here on one of these golden milestone things. They all give you different bonus at the end of the game, but they also give you directly a number of victory points, and as usual, the person who's first gets to choose which card they want and which icon they want to cover. So in this case, let's say I wanted to do this, I'll get 8 victory points. There are 8 different scoring options up here. For those, please look them up in the instructions, and you will have random selection up there. You see that there are 3 of these golden markers, so if you get past 70 points, you can cover 3 of these golden milestone cards at the most. Once you pass this again, you won't be able to cover another slot somewhere up there. In a 2 to 3 player game, there will be 1 or 2 non-competitive markers here on the 20 and on the 30. What happens here is that when you pass the 20, the first person who passes it will pick up the marker, or one of the markers, and it will be placed on the first empty slot up here to discover the aliens. In my case, the first one from the left is this one here. Had this already been covered, this one here will then cover this slot here. And if all of them have been covered and you still have a marker that will come up, it will just go away and will have no effect at all. So that's the first action that can happen at the end of a turn. The second one is what just happened here, which is we have now discovered these aliens because we've covered all three fields here underneath it. When that happens, you'll flip the alien card here, and you have discovered a certain kind of alien now. We won't go deeper into the different aliens now, but each kind of alien has their own cards and they all have their own rules. So when you flip a card over of an alien kind, you'll then go and search for the instructions in the story of these aliens. You'll bring in the cards. You're most likely going to distribute a number of those cards to the people who have covered here the spaces below them. And afterwards, whoever has different triangles, blue, yellow, or red, they can place a marker on these aliens and they will get different bonus, different actions that will pop up. And it's considered that all the cards that come from aliens are stronger than regular cards. So it's actually worth being one of the people who discovers these aliens. So these two things happen between your turn and the next player's turn in case you either move past a milestone or you've discovered the aliens. Now, at some point, there will be the point where you as a player or somebody else, they just cannot do anything anymore because they don't have any money anymore, they don't have any energy anymore, they don't want to play anymore, so they pass. The first player who passes grabs this token here. You see it's another rotation marker. You take it away and you go and rotate. In this case, I rotate the second circle here by a sector. This action only happens for the first player who passes. The player who passes then, and that now is for all of the players, whenever you pass, you grab whatever cards are left here, you can look at them, you'll pick one, you'll put the others back. And that brings us to the end of the round. Once every player has passed, at that point, there will be just one card left here. That card gets discarded. And what we'll do next is that every player gets income. And this is where we come to the income symbol that I've shown you before, that I've always postponed until later. But at the very beginning of the game, you will have gotten your own starting card. And as you can see, the income symbol is also on this card. During the game, you'll have this card in front of you, and every time one of those income actions comes up, like here and here, whenever you go in orbit, you will take one card from your hand. Let's say that was a card in my hand. You can select which card you want to play, and you put that card underneath this starting card. And if you get lucky, and you can do that a few times, you get more and more stuff here underneath. And at the end of the round, everybody gets income. And the income is whatever you see down here. So in my case now, that will be 3 coins, 3 energy, and 2 cards from the top of the deck. So everybody takes their income. Then we'll move the starting player token to the next player in order, so clockwise order. And we'll take here the rotation marker and place it on the next deck that's there. Once you've played 4 rounds, you don't have to do this anymore. There's no 5th deck. It just goes away. And so that also brings us to the end of the game. Once we've played 5 rounds, once everybody has passed 5 times, we're at the end of the game. At that point, we just score the rest, the scoring of the milestones, the scoring of any card that you might have with a golden rectangle, and the potential extra scoring that an alien kind might have on you. You get these extra points, That's the end of the game. Whoever has the most points won. And here's some hints for the first game. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't have enough people who I could play this with because it takes so long and it's such an advanced game that I haven't played many rounds of this game, and I don't really know what kind of strategy or all the strategies that there could be. I can give you some hints though towards what I realized in my first game, what kind of issues I had, where I didn't really understand what I was doing, where I was going, and what I wish I would have known in the very beginning. So for one, it's very important for you to know why you're actually doing what you're doing. You can't just go and start your main actions because you think it's cool to launch a probe and move it around in your solar system. But what you need to know is really, why are you doing this? You're trying to get live traces. You're trying to be able to discover the aliens in the hope that when the aliens are discovered, they're going to give you lots of good points because you were one of the people who discovered them. That is your goal. So try to shoot for these 3 different triangles, the yellow one, the pink one, and the blue one. And you'll get 2 of them rather automatically in order if you go and do some scanning, and then you scan sectors where you can actually complete the sector. Then you will also get some data that you can analyze later, so you have a chance to get the pink and the blue right away. For the orange, you really have to go and start moving around in the solar system, launching probes, moving the probes, land on a actual planet. You can't just go into orbit. You have to land on the planet to get it. But that's a lot more expensive. That needs a lot more to get there. You will notice very quickly that your money will be running out. It runs out very fast. Before you know it, before you've really done enough actions, your money has run out. And so I suggest in the very beginning, in round 1 at least, maybe also in round 2, go and collect income. And I've shown you before, the income comes mostly from orbiting planets, and orbiting planets is actually not that expensive. And you don't have to go very far. You could technically actually stay in the most central region here. You can go just to maybe Mars, Venus, and Mercury, and you can get income through the income symbol that you have here in these different planets. And then this income will help you later, because at the end of every round, you'll get income. You have something in hand again that you can actually do actions in the next round. That's very important. The other thing I noticed is that it's kind of tricky to get to new cards. You could use publicity to get to cards, but you don't want to use publicity because you rather get publicity or use publicity to research a tech. And you really want to get tech, and you also want to get tech rather quickly because they really make everything that you do during the game cheaper. So I would really suggest in the very beginning, try to get to income by orbiting planets, try to get to publicity so that you can get tech. And then you move on with the other stuff. Now, granted, at that point, somebody else might already have discovered some of the aliens. You don't necessarily have to be the first one to discover an alien. You can also go and see the aliens afterwards. They still give you a bunch of points. There's still good stuff that you can get from them. You just don't get the initial benefit from when the aliens are discovered if you weren't once one of the players who actually discovered the aliens. And if you somehow can, try to combine main actions for less money. So for example, I showed you before, there is a tech for scanning where if you go scan, you automatically can launch a probe for free. That's a cool thing to do. Or you use a card that makes it cheaper for you to actually do one of the main actions. You just pay for the card and then you do your action. I personally also think that the tech to land on the moon is amazing because the moons can give you loads of points. But I have to admit that all those planets that give you all these points are also far away. So the movement might be a little more expensive to get there, but maybe you get publicity on the way, and you can use this publicity to then either draw cards that might help you, or to get more tech to make things cheaper for you. And if you have more good tips, please put them down in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe to the channel. And up next, how to set up the game. To set up the game, you'll place the circular disc in the middle. You'll then have this disc here that you can place down in any order that you wish, as long as the sectors here overlap with the sectors here. You'll also have these discs where you first have to actually place the sun, and then you put the biggest one on top. Again, you align the sectors, you put another one on top, the smaller one, and the smallest goes on the very top of this. The important thing here is that the sectors align somehow so that the sectors are clear. If you want to have a given setup already of the rings and how they should be, you can look those up. There is even a link, there's a QR code in the instructions that you can scan so that you can get a very specific setup, and maybe even a different setup every single time you play. You'll then fill all these slots here with data markers. You'll also add out here these additional parts to the circle. You'll add 2 alien parts here randomly of all the aliens. You'll shuffle the deck. You'll place it somewhere next to the board. You'll open 3 cards. You'll also take your 4 milestone cards. They're 2-sided, double-sided. You can place them on any side you want to. Randomly distributed is fine. On the side over here, you'll place 4 decks of cards. Each deck has 1 card more than there are players. You'll then place here the tech. First, you take all the tech cards. You'll sort them by these symbols here that also match what it says here on the bottom. You then put them face down so that you see actually what kind of bonus you get. There are 12 of them. You have to sort them always by these symbols that you have on the bottom. You put 2 victory points on top. You'll place 1 rotation disc here on this space. You'll place the other one on the end round cards for the first round. You'll then place the data packs and also here the money and the energy tokens on the side. If you are only 2 or 3 players, you'll also have to add here some of these non-competitive markers. In case of 3 players, it's just 1. In case of 2 players, you put 2 of them here at the 20 and at the 30. Every player then places their microphone on the 4, and then each player places their victory marker here on the victory tracker, with the first player being on the 1, the second on 2, and so on. Every player also gets their own player board, and every player, of course, also gets all their probes, their markers that they need for the rest of the game. They take them to themselves. Every player also takes their starting card here, and you then get your starting resources, which is, as again, for publicity, we're there, 4 coins, 3 energy, and 5 cards from the top of the deck. And you already get to put 1 card as income on the other side. So you flip that card around, you take whichever card out of the 5 that you want, that you have, and you place it underneath it, and you'll have that in front of you too for when you get income later. And finally, the starting player also gets here the moon. That's it. We're now ready to go.